Hello, here we are once again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring, as many of you already know through these videos, his disillusionist philosophy. And at the center of this philosophy, the misalgic theory that explains human behavior through the aversion of suffering. What we've been trying to do for years now, month after month, in this series, is to try and illustrate the rather abstract concepts in this theory, in this philosophy, with facts from everyday life. We've covered the news back when we started. We discussed a lot the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've even discussed historic events like the war in the Ukraine. And today we are going to take advantage of maybe the most frequent, the most prevalent aspect of everyday life, which is forgetfulness, which is inattention, which is the way in which we are oblivious to most of what transpires around us, and analyze this from a disillusionist point of view.
Hope so. You see, when you use the word ignore, to ignore something, in general, our tendency will be to think that this is a voluntary thing. Yes? You ignore something because you decide not to give it your attention to it. Now, when you look to the word, to the verb obviate, which is a very uncommon use in English, and you look in the thesaurus, I was looking for a more, because in Spanish it's easier. I was looking for a word, and all of them, with no exception, were voluntary, were done with intention. Yes, everything like to rule out, for example, or certain other things. So here we're talking about passive stuff that we do as animals, not really as humans. And I will go. I want to concentrate. One part is to obviate. That means not to give not to bring your attention to something. For example, I hear now the sea. I hear the sea and maybe the wind as well. Now, if I would be putting my attention to that, this conversation is going to be like, what I was saying? I mean, I will be totally lost because I will be dividing my attention. In fact, you never divide your attention. It's intermittent, very fastly. Yes. So it would be difficult even to make, a cogent argument, to make it sound really real. So we do it all the time, but not only us. Every animal and probably every plant does not react to other stimuli that may have been there, or in that conditions the stimuli will not appear. For example, if you have an antelope eating grass and suddenly it smells a tiger or a predator, I don't know, what predator it could be, a human being, it will stop eating. It will stop giving its attention to what it's eating, and it will shift its attention to the danger. So did it forget it? No, it just the animal obviated it. Okay, this is something that we have stuff, technological stuff that does the work of attention for us. The most common one is either a thermostat that regulates your air conditioning. A thermostat works very well, or even an alarm. If not imagine you don't have an alarm and you are afraid that people will come to your house. So you will say, okay, now you take care of this window, you of this window, we have no life. So the question in this, it is necessary. If we cannot do that, it's a problem. Now, forgetting is a different kind of animal, or in this case, a different kind of concept. Here we're talking about something that we forget, not because we didn't remember, but because it's gone. It's just there. It's gone with many of the things that happen to us in our lives. What do you think, Florencio, about that?
I was listening to you and I was thinking not only about the direct consequences for the individual of being unable to neglect, forget, obviate, however we want to frame this, but also of something we've discussed many times before, which is what you call the sync, the coordination between the behavior of different individuals in society or even in animal packs, if you think about it. What would happen to that sync? What would happen to our relationships with each other if we were unable to let go, to forget, to obviate? That also would be a catastrophe, right?
Well, if I will remember everything about somebody, yes, that would be a problem. I'll give you a good example. I don't like people who eat with their mouth open. I don't. I must say. So if I see somebody with his mouth open, I will forget about it once. I mean, he will not be present all the time when I'm talking with him, yes, unless he's eating. Then I will have a problem. But that way of forgetting, that thing of not bringing my attention even to my memory, allows me to lubricate. We used it in the last video. We talked about it. You know, it reduces the swelling in a relationship. It allows the relationship to work. So that kind of passive work, passive behavior, that kind of passive behavior allows us to sync ourselves better socially, not only in the big sync, but even in the small sinks inside of our egosphere even. Okay, some people, as you know, Florencio, cannot forget something in a relationship. Somebody, you know, it's not about eating with your mouth open. Maybe somebody cheated. Maybe somebody lied to you, an egregious lie. You know, something of the kind. Any of those things will be a good reason not to forget. You see, if I would tell you, hey, listen, you know, I cannot talk with this guy because I always remember how he is with his mouth open. He will tell me, well, you have a problem. I have a problem, not him. Besides his behavior, I will have a problem because I should be able to obviate. And there is something in the obviation mechanism that is not working.
You got me thinking about literary examples here. It's very famous, I'm sure people remember this. They cannot forget how Proust in Search of Lost Time deals with jealousy. And the jealous guy, he can't let go, he cannot forget, he cannot obey. He's fixated upon the fact that in her coat, in the pocket, there was a small ticket of a show that she went without him. It's like, and there's a similar instance. Maybe not so many people know of this outside of Argentina. For us, it's very important, which is Borges has this very famous story about Funes de Memorius. There's this fantasy character that simply cannot forget anything, and everything stays with him, and it's completely paralyzing. It's completely hindering his ability to engage with others in just the simple life. So I think these are literary fantastic examples, but they point at, I would say, an even pathological side to not forgetting, not neglecting, not obviating, right?
Well, those situations in which you cannot forget or you have a problem obviating are in many cases just very, 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 very tough pathologies, very tough. One of them is OCD. Did I turn off the light when I left? Or didn't I? Didn't I? It went, it's off. And then maybe I put it on afterwards. That kind of situation in which you cannot obviate does not allow you to sleepwalk. And sleepwalk, may I remind everybody, it is the guarantee of no suffering. Is that of not suffering during that time? Of course, there is no guarantee because you're going to suffer anyway. But those times that you are sleepwalking, you don't suffer. Now you cannot sleepwalk when you have something like that. When you cannot obviate, it's the building blocks of sleepwalking, of habits. The building blocks are the things you don't pay attention to, not the one you do pay attention to. I will give you other examples. PTSD, that's a serious pathology. People cannot. I have a friend who tells me that every time there is a Independence Day and people start, with fireworks, he gets all his war memories back. In fact, he tries to not to be in Independence Day because it's very hard on him. Even autism, the overload of stuff that cannot be obviated. And well, you just mentioned jealousy, but I would mention also guilty feelings. I mean, they will be knowing, yes, at your head, and that means you cannot sleepwalk. It means it's very hard. It is our power to ignore, our power to obviate, our power not to be at attention that makes our lives working. If not, you cannot concentrate on anything.
I agree. I totally agree. But why is it that our culture strives against that power? Because everywhere we look, we find stoic and idealist reminders of how much we should pay attention, of how, I remember our last video, how sensitive, how responsive we should be, how we should not forget. There's I would say, a prevalence in that type of message, in that type of prescription.
Well, the message really is I would say demagogic, but I would be a little bit softer on that. But it's the way of that idealism, that religion, a lot of religion, to get into your priorities. So you will sleepwalk, not you will have intention. So the verb the idea that you should be, intent on things should be done by intention is really not realistic, because 95% of the time we sleepwalk, and you need this 95% of the time do what that idealistic view, being communism or Judaism or Islam, can do to you. In Islam, there is something interesting. People learn, and like the Jews have to have to read when they pray. They should not pray by heart. That's the prescription. In Islam, no, you remember everything by heart, because writing and reading was not prevalent among the Islamic population until not long ago. So they had to know everything by heart. Now, when you say things by heart, you cannot think. So the idea is two things. I want you to do what I want, but since your attention is limited, I want you to put yourself in the high priority. How does religion or idealism do it? By putting a Damocles sword over your head and saying, if you don't do this, suffering will ensue. And then, since you avert suffering, if that suffering is bigger than the other one, you will stop paying attention in your sleepwalking to something, you will do it the other way around. No religious Jew ever thinks, shall I eat pork or shall I not? Shall I go to a restaurant that is not kosher or is not? No Muslim on Ramadan will sit in a restaurant and then decide not to eat. It doesn't happen. This has to be in the sleepwalking system. So what I'm trying to say is that the limits that this critical view of negligence, and they use these words, they are all negative. When we speak about ignorance, we don't speak about the ignorance of not knowing history. We're talking about the ignorance, the thing you ignore. Yes. And how do we know that you ignore them? Because somebody will tell you, you should not have to. You should not have ignored. What do you mean you didn't? When a person has habits, things get very easily. So a person knows that he has to check the pills before he leaves the home, that he has the pills that he needs to drink during the day. And then he puts it in his head. He does it every single day. He's not paying attention to it. He has it in his habits.
I think paying attention is the exact wording we are looking for here, because it's a very limited amount of attention. We haven't discussed this in a long time, I feel, but in the early videos, people could find lots of arguments around the limits, the constraints around our attention capabilities. So there's an automatism there. We mentioned animals before in this same analysis. There's an automatism there that goes against these ideological claims, right? These prescriptions from idealists and Stoics. There is so much attention you can pay, and it's not that big, right?
Now, again, we have the numbers I heard is 20 kilobytes per second, which is this very, very small kind of attention. So everybody is really competing for your attention. That's what advertising is. Yes? They are competing for your attention. They're trying to steer your attention to something else. But again, if they wake you up, good, they woke you up. But now the person who has been woken up from his or her sleepwalking, they're not good at what they're doing because they almost never do it. So it is, as I say, it's a fallacy to say, I want you not to ignore. I want you not to ignore what I say. You should ignore the rest. In proportions, we ignore, we obviate 99.9999% of the things that come into our senses. And as I said, good, we can do it. If not, you get into the pathologies we spoke before. So, you know, the point here is that we should be able to embrace those terms because that's what we are. We are ignorers. We are obviators. I don't know. Obviators, like aviators, but
proud obviators.
So we are obviators. That's what we do. And the better we do it, the more we do it, the more we sleepwalk, and the less we are interrupted.
We're out of time already. I don't know if we can take this last bit as advice, as a sort of disillusionist prescription. I see at least a resistance against the idealist and the Stoic prescriptions here.
Disillusionism is a description, it's not a prescription. We prescribe nothing. You know why? Because even if you have solved all the sufferings you did, two things happen. Either you get bored or you get new sufferings, because we are programmed, like any other animal, to look for dangers, to look for problems. So we'll always find them. Always. You remember the story of the princess with the mattresses? That she had the little, I don't remember, it was something very small that they put under her 7 mattress, and when she woke up, they wanted to see if she was a princess, so they put that, and after she woke up, she says, there was something, that did bother me. This is exactly that. This is exactly what we are. And this is not good, it is not bad. But why am I saying description and not prescription? Because also, don't forget that we also have, our life is a box of tissues. We take one suffering out, then you get another one, and then we get another until we die. This is it. This is. So what am I going to tell people to do? You cannot stop suffering. You know exactly what are you. You are always the expert on your own suffering. Everybody is their utmost expert in their own suffering. They know how to deal with them. And disillusionism is like saying the Everest has 8,488 meters. Sorry for those who make it feet, I cannot make it in my head. But 880. So you tell that to somebody. So he says, okay, what can I do about it? Nothing. It's a description. Disillusionism is just descriptive. It's not prescriptive. Things the way they are, that's it. That's what we have. Reality is there.
Amazing. Go take cover. Crows are about to attack you. We are done.
You
here.
See, I was ignoring them. I was obviating.
They are all over.
Bye-bye.
See you next time, Mookie. Thank you.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.